Entrepreneurship can be really hard. And when you're doing it by yourself, trying to navigate the terrain, it can almost be impossible. That's why we created the Entrepreneur Circle. Every episode, you're going to hear from incredible entrepreneurs who are in the same trenches that you are in. And we're going to talk through what's working, what's not working, whether it be in marketing, finance, or anything in between. We're here to talk business and figure out how each of us can rise together. So welcome to the circle. Let's dig in. Welcome to Entrepreneur Circle. I'm your host, Paresa Noble, and I'm excited for today's conversation. I feel like we're going to go pretty deep into some very important things as it relates to entrepreneurship. And I am here with none other than Kyle Gray. He's the founder of The Story Engine. He's a story strategist. His main thing is helping people tell better stories so that they can make more money on stage. And from what I've seen in his work and from what I know of him, it often goes way beyond that to the point where people start implementing completely different strategies in their life based on what they talk to Kyle about. So Kyle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Paresa, thank you so much for having me. As a podcaster myself, I understand how much of a labor of love that a show like yours really is and the time and energy that you've put into it. So it's always such a pleasure to be on another show. So thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to this.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Kyle. We connected at Optimist Mastermind just a few months ago. When was that? Was that this past summer, I believe?
It was October, I believe.
October in the fall. Amazing mastermind if you guys haven't heard of it. But Kyle and I kind of gravitated toward each other, probably because our work is somewhat similar, right? He's helping people on stages. I'm helping people on podcasts. And I think our life experiences have had a lot of overlap, it feels. So where I want to start is first just backing up 50,000 foot view. I want to learn about the Story Engine and how you got involved in what you're doing today. So maybe Kyle, if you could give our listeners just, that high level overview of what made you fall into this work. How did you get here?
There's a couple of different threads that have led to this. One thread is in my late teens and early 20s, I was convinced that the only way I was going to live a happy and fulfilled life was by being a singer, songwriter, and musician. And I was certain that I was destined to write songs that would change people's minds and perspectives and come up with music and chords and ideas that were different and unique, and had that fantasy for a while. And then I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform, to make the hits, to make it happen. And that actually ended up, unsurprisingly burning me out on the craft. And from there, I also knew that I loved to travel and I wanted to travel, and found myself going all over the world. I lived in many different countries in South America. I learned to speak Spanish and Portuguese in my 20s. I lived in Southeast Asia in some of my late 20s as well. And spending time in many of those different countries, I ended up coming down with some gut health and sicknesses that would end up defining a lot of my late 20s. This would manifest in some ways as a thyroid autoimmune condition, bad gut health. And my experience of this, though I didn't understand it at the time, was feeling a lot of joint pain. I couldn't hike a quarter mile without some serious knee pain. I would wake up with anxiety every morning, and I was never thinking, wow, my autoimmune condition is making me feel very anxious today. It was always, oh no, I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. The other political party is ruining my life, or whatever it is, but never the actual reason of why I was feeling this way. Simultaneously, with my love for travel, I was expanding my skill in writing and started doing blogging and content marketing as a business. I worked for a startup called WP Curve for a couple of years and helped them grow to 7 figures in recurring revenue, leading their content marketing initiatives, which was their primary and basically only marketing, and started trading up my writing skills. I worked with companies like selfpublishing.com and helping them create systems to tell their story and their message. And somewhere around 8 years ago, I remember seeing a man named Pete Vargas speak from the stage, talking about using your story as the ultimate business tool. And I immediately became enchanted and started thinking about how I was a singer-songwriter and I wanted to get on the stage again. And I could access that dream and that vision that I had from a younger age. And while my career as a writer and a copywriter was progressing, so was my condition, my health condition. I started feeling sicker and sicker and more tired. One day I found myself speaking with my very first life coach that I ever had. Things were getting bad enough. I thought the word life coach was kind of a silly term and didn't really want to get involved with it, but things were tough enough that I was like, you know what, let's give this a try. And I can remember him telling me, hey, Kyle, what if Hashimoto's, which was the autoimmune condition I was experiencing, is your superpower? And I remember laughing. Ha! That is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. I'm going to hang up the Skype call right now, sir. Thank you. Goodbye. Outrageous. About a year later, I found myself facilitating a workshop for speakers who wanted to get on more stages and get their message right. This one happened to be filled with health and wellness experts. And I sat next to a woman and she said, "Hi, my name's Dr. Grace, and I help people overcome chronic autoimmune diseases with better gut health." And something happened all in an instant. Everything that I was learning about being a copywriter, a storytelling, a speech trainer, came together with everything that I was experiencing with my own story, with my own experience. Everything that I was certain was a curse and a condemnation and the worst thing ever to happen to my life suddenly got mixed with my copywriting brain for the first time. And I realized that everything that I had been going through made me a perfect fit to help these kind of experts who were way too smart for their own good, absolutely talented, got great results, but would get lost in the forest of their own minds, talking science and protocols and what people should do, but missing out on the very human experience of what it is to feel these things and experience these things. And just then, I started to believe maybe this really is my superpower. And over the course of about 8 years, I have been honing and refining that skill in working with very brilliant, very talented people who are sometimes experienced speakers, sometimes new to the stage, but they get great results. They know what they're doing. They're established in their business. And because they're so experienced and good at what they do, they actually have a difficult time communicating that in a way that gets people to take action, to listen, to lean in. And I serve as a bridge and a mirror to help them find the right stories, to shape their teaching, to shape their ideas in a way that's really going to take the feeling that they get when they're talking about what they do and make it translate and land in the heart of their ideal clients.
Can you tell he's a storyteller? That was so beautifully said.
Thank you.
Something stood out to me in that story of how you realized what it is you're supposed to be doing and where to pour your energy. That moment that the doctor who introduced herself as working with people who have autoimmune disease and have gut health stuff, right? When you met her, do you recall where you were at personally as far as how much capacity and bandwidth you had to really slow down and receive what it is that you were supposed to realize in that moment? Or were you kind of, I feel oftentimes when we're at the beginning stages of building our businesses, we're so deep in the work and the busy work and have our heads down. It's hard to come up for a moment and slow down to pause and receive what we are supposed to do next and what that path forward is. In that moment that you met her and you had that realization, can you speak to where you were at personally, whether you felt like you were kind of in the hustle and bustle, or if you were ready for a change?
I was 1,000,000% in the hustle and bustle. I actually remember another topic of discussion on that life coaching call before this moment happened was he was suggesting, hey, can you do 15 minutes of breath work in the morning? And I was like, no, I don't have 15. I've got to wake up and get to work. I've got to get this thing going. That was the attitude that I had. And I think this is the attitude that a lot of us have. And it's wild, but the process of creating the success and managing the success that we've created oftentimes leaves us forgetting the vision or the reason why we set out to create this success in the first place. And I am the guiltiest of this. And I've heard hundreds and hundreds of stories of people on my own podcast podcast making these same mistakes. And I wish that after hearing from hundreds of entrepreneurs of this story of losing themselves in managing the business because this is what is necessary to get to where we're going, and then forgetting where we're going at all. Like, I wish I could have learned by now, but I still find myself in this cycle all of the time. And it's just it's a law of physics and a force of nature that we will drift from alignment, experience pain, and then come back into alignment with an upgraded insight from that. So I definitely sensed the opportunity in that moment, but it would take a long time for me to make sense of that. And the best part about that is like transforming, like, this was the worst thing ever to happen to me, to this is my edge and my advantage. While I help people make more money on stages, this is the effect that I have with most of the people that I work with. They come to me and they're very busy and they don't have time. And so they need somebody to be like a surgeon of their mind and explore the right stories and ideas and get out of their own way. But when we start telling a story differently, and when we start finding a moment that we once like labeled as bad, as a curse, and find a way to use it, then we start making different decisions. But it takes a while to turn that ship. Our identity is like a very heavy ship that's slow to turn and requires lots of love and consistency to get there.
Lots of love, especially if it's something that's negative, that's deeply impacted you. I feel like for me, it had taken, regardless of what the situation would be, if it was negative, it would take some time for me to, one, get over it and find the closure to then be able to turn it around and use it, whether it be in my story or as motivation, etc. But I think that's really interesting that you've combined those two elements. I mean, what you've been on with your health journey, combined with how you're helping and supporting people, and now just seeing how you are working and moving with experts in different fields. Is it different fields, or are you primarily focused in on health and wellness experts?
Health and wellness was the springboard for me, and they have the same problem, and they are particularly acute in the problem of being too smart for their own good, of having 99 amazing things to say and not knowing which one to say, so they try to say them all. And I see the same thing happening. I've worked with financial planners, marketers, coaches, event hosts, a lot of people in the psychedelic space as well. They're all so good at what they do, and it just becomes difficult to parse down what the one thing that they need to say is. And a lot of times it's because we're self-referencing. A lot of the speakers I work with, before they work with me, they get up on stage and they're talking and they feel like they're on fire, giving away their best knowledge, but they're like kind of just entertaining and referencing themselves, like what's important to me, what's interesting to me. And they forget about their audience. What do they need to hear right now?
Right. What do you say to the small business owner or founder who hasn't ever considered speaking or getting any training on speaking in general? Because what you're sharing, it applies to more than just what you're saying on the stage. It applies to sales conversations and how you network and how you meet people and how you move in your own business. So as far as our listeners, our whole goal is to teach the different ways that people can grow their business. And I see speaking as one of the fastest ways to build authority, to share the message, and to get new clients and close new business. But that's something that feels very out of reach, I think, for a lot of people who aren't used to being kind of in that limelight. For those people, do you think there is an opportunity for speaking to wind? Is it something that you can learn if you've never done it before, if you've never had the experience?
Absolutely. A lot of people come to me thinking that they're going to get one story that's going to be the magical skeleton key that will unlock everything in their life that they need. And I see storytelling like a martial art. One kind of story is like your karate chop. Another kind of story might be a block, or we can also use a yoga practice if you want a different, more feminine metaphor for anyone out there. Every move and movement has a certain utility and a purpose. So learning learning how to do these things, we practice our martial art, or we practice our yoga, and we practice our stories, not just so in the moments on the stage, but they also we can use these intuitively in all kinds of conversations. I use them in my podcast episodes. I use them when I'm a guest. I use them in conversations when I'm sitting next to somebody. And when we understand the movements that make up stories, the key ingredients that we build our stories from, then that allows us to move through our own mind and communicate. So these are very practicable, very intuitive things. But a lot of us, we try so hard to be intellectual in our approach, and it often ends up slowing us down. And so one of the ways that I work with clients that I think is very unique, the output, the stories, there's a lot of people that can teach you how to tell a story. But a lot of people, like what we've talked about and observed, they come to me when their business is so busy and so crazy and they don't have time, and they need a surgeon to help find the stories and get them out quickly. And so what I do is I work somewhat like a therapist, and I'm asking you questions. What are your clients' problems? What does it really feel like to be them? What if they woke up at 3 a.m. and called you freaking out? What would they say? And then this is where I like to trick people. I say, when did you feel like that? And oftentimes it allows us to access different memories and ideas that we would normally label as things that I would never want to talk about on a podcast or on stage. And as I know the movements, the martial art, the yoga practice. And so when I get enough of their ingredients, instead of teaching them, here's how we do our first phrase, and we have the opening hook here, and then we have this specific kind of statement, which has this kind of utility, I just tell them their story as if I am them. They get to feel it and experience it. And I call it like getting what a story smells like. And if you can have that experience first, then it allows you to have a much deeper embrace of the message and of the idea, and then we can speak from there. So I'm very experiential, and if you can feel your story and see the possibility of what it is, it allows us to access it a lot faster than trying to brain our way to it.
It's interesting you say that. This weekend, I was at a conference called Speakonomics, and I was fortunate enough to be a judge in their competition. They had a competition for eWomen's Network for the greatest speaker in North America, which is awesome. And Tony Caruso, who is running that event, she had asked me to be a judge. There were, I want to say it was 8 to 10 contestants. All of them were awesome. And there were a few that when they would get up there and they really settled into the feeling, so that it wasn't just what they were saying, it was they really felt what they were talking about. And you could tell that it was more kind of authentically coming through them rather than a performative, okay, at this line, I'm going to get louder. And at this point, I'm going to walk across the stage. You can feel the energy of a speaker from the stage, and you can feel the energy of a speaker from a podcast, from a conversation and a sales call. I feel like this is something that not a lot of people talk about, is what you are exuding from yourself as you are having these conversations or as you're on stage. And to your point, you taking that experiential route and really leaning into the feeling of it, I feel like that's why you're onto something and why you've grown how you've grown, because the way you're doing it, one, is different than a lot of other people in the same line of work. And I think it's also really leaning into the emotional side of speaking. And I think it's going to become more and more important as we get further and deeper into AI, because AI is going to desensitize people, where we will be craving more of that feeling and more of that authenticity rather than that performative element. And needless to say, I mean, everyone in that competition was awesome. And the people that, ended up winning were the ones that had the most feeling come through in what they were talking about.
Here's the thing that I've learned, as entrepreneurs and as high achievers, everybody listening to this show right now, we've had to get a couple of wires crossed to get to where we are. We're a little bit crazy. It's okay. It's okay. A little bit at least. And these wires crossed have led us to seek our achievement as our validation. We have been rewarded in the early stages of our business for grinding harder and working harder and getting there. And so we've become addicted to that achievement. But what I do is valuable immediately implies that who I am is not valuable. And there's a contrast here. And so we cast a lens over our own lives and experiences and energy. And you can see somebody who believes fundamentally that what I do is valuable, and they will cast an energy on stage and they will make decisions of what should I talk about on this stage, on this podcast, in front of this person, or even what should I do with my day today? And when we can learn, sometimes tactically at first, how to express who I am is valuable, that's the people that you can see. And it's not only about emotions. Your brilliance and your ideas are necessary and needed. And I'm not just saying get up on stage and talk about the darkest moment of your life and say, please believe in me and listen to me. There's also an element of like who I am is in service to you. And if we know and are tapped in to who our clients are, and these people that probably feel a lot like we did in that moment that we don't want to talk about right now, and if we use it as a way not to say, look at me, I was hurting too, but I know exactly where you were, and that's why I've worked so hard to find this solution for you today. And when we can embody that, that's when we start to connect.
That's beautiful. You're bringing up a thought, because as you say this, a lot of the things that we've been through ourselves, it's something that our audience would relate to. And I'm trying to think of where I heard it, but we were dialing in who is your target audience, right? That was the exercise. Okay, you know who they are, the demographic, paint a picture of your avatar. And at the end of the exercise, if you really do this and you write down who it is, 8 or 9 times out of 10, your avatar is a mirror of yourself, depending on the line of work you're in. I know it's definitely true for me. Yeah. I would want to go through and do kind of a poll on it to see, but when you really take a step back and look at who you're targeting and who you're serving, a lot of times, especially if you're in the service-based world, it is a reflection of you, who you are.
It's true. One of the things I'll say that I've done differently is I've always sought to serve entrepreneurs and leaders who I thought were 5 or 6 years ahead of me, where the common idea is you want to serve people who are a few years behind you, but they're ahead of me in terms of their business. Most of the people I work with have much larger businesses, make a lot more money, and have more of the basic elements of success than I currently do. But I have at least gone through a process of understanding and discovering and integrating emotions and both my elements of my masculinity and femininity and moving through those. And I can serve and add value in that way. And I understand through some of my own experience and in working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and now having over 400 guests on my own episode or my own podcast, what it takes to get to that point.
Wow. Fascinating. Fascinating stuff when you really think about it. I think so many times we overcomplicate the answer and the path forward, but it really is just from what we're talking about. It's tuning into yourself and understanding the good, the bad, the ugly, and how that ties into what you're doing. It's magnificent. I love that, Kyle. Tell me more about how you're growing your business in today's world. We obviously met at a mastermind, but I'm curious to hear how you've gotten to the point that you're at. What are some business development tools that you use to help grow your exposure?
In working in the world of very high-level relationships with very high-level people, the most consistent thing I have done is I invest most of my money in being in rooms with the right people. And that has served me reasonably well over the years. But to your credit and your show's credit, I also feel that that's come at a great cost. Most of these masterminds come at a great financial cost, but they're 1,000,000% worth it. I've never had one. They pay off in ways that I never would have expected. Some of the people that I've met can come in and deliver value in my life. That's absolutely unbelievable. But I found myself constantly going from event to event to event, recovering from an event, getting catching up on missing a few days of work, and then getting ready to go to another one. And so I have been, though I've been doing this podcast for 5 or 6 years, I've really been focusing on creating a better experience, both for my guests and for my audience. And so over the last half year, my goal has been my guests come onto my show. I'm excited to have you on soon. And they get to experience the same process that I described. I interview you. I ask you about your ideal clients, moments from your own life. And the climax of this show is me reflecting your story to you. And I am confident that there's no other podcast that does anything like this out there. And one of my big goals has been, how do I create the messaging and the experience so that before somebody shows up onto the show, they know exactly why this is so valuable and important to them? Because it's a very highly emotional process to hear your own story for the first time. And a lot of them kind of get dazzled in it. And so I've been working on creating a better onboarding experience so that they show up and they know exactly what they're going to get, what they're going to do with it, and why. And it's still something I've been working on, creating educational videos for like, hey, here's how you should have a good microphone. You should have a good camera. Here are some people I've worked with. Somewhere around 40% of people cry after hearing this. So be ready for that. And having a couple of these things just like laid out so the expectations are really there. And then one of the things that I've known from my podcast is, while I love building an audience, having it as an opportunity to connect with other creators and develop relationships, they may become a client, but also they can introduce me to other people who really could be my clients. They can put me in other rooms. They can get me on other shows and doing these things. And so my podcast has been my ultimate tool to grow and expand my network and open doors that I couldn't open just by saying, hey, I'm a person. Do you want to talk to me for an hour?
I love that you say that, because that is literally our entire business model. I feel like you just gave a commercial, but it is the most effective tool that I have found as well, as far as building your business organically, especially for the line of work that we're in when it comes to the coaching, consulting, agency services. It's amazing how much podcasting can accomplish. It's more than just, yes, we're creating content to help and serve people and teach people things, right? Absolutely. But beyond that, it doubles up as you get to sit down and have these in-depth conversations with people that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have had the chance to talk to. You get to create content at scale. One episode, one conversation could turn into countless social media reels, blogs, emails, etc. And I'm excited. I'm so excited to join the Story Engine podcast. You guys have to tune in. Not only just to my episode, you should totally listen to my episode when it drops, but Kyle has cultivated something very unique in how he is hosting this show, and the people he has on are incredible. The way that he's asking the questions and crafting the story, I love the way that you've structured the show, and I can imagine I'm going to walk out of that so much better than when I walked in. So I love what you've created with your show. Kudos.
I'm delighted. To your credit or your process, after having this show for 5 or 6 years, and I'm curious what your experience with these kind of people is. I get somewhere between 5 and 10 emails a week now from typically PR agencies or sometimes entrepreneurs on their own reaching out to be on my show. And I've had a lot of mixed experiences with this. Some of the first times I remember somebody came on to be a guest on my show and they were driving in their car. And you're like, wow. So we've got to filter them out. But they're also people are paying a lot of money to get placed and find podcasts. And for a long time, I saw it as an annoyance. Oh my God, these PR agencies are just sending these people who have no idea what's going on. But I've had a really great perspective shift recently of these are, potential leads and collaborators, and people are coming to me. And again, this is my shift from maybe a very highly masculine, invest a lot of money, be in the room, make the right connections, do the things to, I want to be magnetic and just attract the right people. I want to create a highly desirable place where speakers and experts want to come. They want to experience this. They want this gift. And then I can enjoy more time at home. And hopefully, just like I promise a lot of the people that I work with, we get to do things that aren't our business things. I'm so excited this year to have more human adventures, the trips that are not tax write-offs, or maybe just very loosely tax write-offs. that I can cleverly figure out how to have a tax write-off, but I'm going to have fun, not trying to get clients and get an ROI and have this high level performing achievingness.
I feel this so deeply because it's, traveling to these events. I mean, right now, as we're recording this, it's Affiliate Summit West. This is the first year in about 7 years that I haven't gone. And I do have FOMO. I'm not going to lie. I am missing everybody there for sure, but I am also enjoying being here with my kids, being able to make time to record this with you, to be able to catch up on work. The back-to-back event schedules that I had been doing and many people do to grow their business because it does work and it is important. I think at some point in your journey, you kind of have to do that to get out there and really build those connections and relationships. But it's also that moment where you realize slowing down might help you speed up. It's taking that step back and settling into the smaller details that create the momentum for you. And I think that's something that maybe both of us are starting to experience because I have that on my 2026 vision board as well, as maybe it's less business travel and more travel with the family or travel with my husband or, staying home and nesting. What a phenomenon, It's exciting.
It is exciting. And having something exciting catalyzes me to come back to my work. Even if it's a non-business trip on the horizon, I want to go to Costa Rica in February and early March. And I'm excited to figure out, how do I take these 2 weeks off? What do I need to do? It brings an energy to my business now that is so much better than I need the business to business more. So we have to more and more.
Yeah. More does not equal more. It might equal burnout. It very likely could equal burnout. I think in 2024, that was really when I started to ramp up my nonprofit that I started. It's called Shield Our Schools. And I was doing that in tandem with Noblier and building Noblier in tandem with being a mom and also being the room mom and trying to juggle all of these and being a wife and a sister and a friend and be present and back to back to back. I don't think I had ever clinically experienced burnout until late 2024. And I can tell you it's probably worn off just in the last couple months. I feel like when you get to the point where you're burnt out, you just kind of throw your hands up and you're like, I'm done. I can't. And it's when you allow yourself to get to that point, you risk your growth. I mean, it will hinder you in the long run. So that sustainable bit by bit, slowing down, I think that's the answer for 2026 for those hustlers out there that are grind, more. Taking a moment to slow down could serve you pretty tremendously.
And you risk so much more than just yourself. I wish that after 400 episodes of hearing about moments just like this, that I could be smart enough to have learned and integrated these things and avoided some of these things. But the avoiding the pain and just trying to work through things, avoiding the pain of things that are going on in my personal life, or the pain that being frankly out of integrity with my business and my work is causing me. We're so good at tolerating the pain and we just keep digging into it until it becomes so loud that it's something we cannot ignore anymore. And I am immersed in my own version and my own episode of that process right now. It will get louder. And I wish you listening out there, I hope that you are at least a little bit smarter than me and could lean in and listen to the earlier signs before things get so crazy. But if not, and if you have to be where you were and where I have been, and we'll probably find ourselves there one way or another sometime soon, the good news is when we know how to tell stories aren't just recounting of the past. There's a law of physics of how the world works and how our experiences develop. And you found yourself at burnout, and now you value things differently, and you're seeking this. There's a turnaround. And I think the other half of your story is about to be told this year. The part where I learned and I made it and I've grown from this. And if you, listener, find yourself in the moment of this pain is too great to ignore anymore, just at least know that if you can lean into it and embrace it, that there is a better thing on the other side, that there is a gift, that there is a pathway to being who you want to be and who you've aspired to be.
What a gift you are, Kyle. I'm so grateful that you came on the show.
Thank you, Paresa.
Shared all these amazing insights. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I will say we're at time. So I want to first get everyone plugged into where they can find you. Where can they follow you?
Absolutely. You can check out my website, books, services, and podcast at thestoryengine.co. Check out my podcast at podcast.thestoryengine.co. And if you want to go through the same process Paresa's going through, I have all kinds of high-level entrepreneurs on my show, and we are creating great stories every single week. I invite you to apply and be a guest on the show. I'd love to meet you. If you want to see a little bit more of my personal life and my goofy weirdness, you can find me at Hey Kyle Gray on Instagram. I am on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I like using those platforms to message and talk to people, but I don't produce a lot of content on those things. But I would love to hear from you on any of those things. And if something I've said or shared has made an impact on you, please reach out and let me know. And please rate and review Paresa's show wherever you are listening. As somebody who is a podcaster, we have to bite and scratch for every single review. And it means the world when somebody does this. So I'm going to do her a favor and just tell you to do it, because it's just tough for us to talk about ourselves and say, rate my show. But do it, please. You've gotten value out of this. If you're listening this far, something good enough has happened that you can leave a few stars on Apple Podcasts for her.
Oh, I appreciate you, Kyle. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on the show. You guys make sure to connect with Kyle and tune in to the Story Engine. I'll be going on there here in a couple weeks, and we can't wait to share that episode with you guys as well. But until then, thank you for tuning into Entrepreneur Circle, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Remember this as you go about your day today. The ideas that are on your heart for a reason. Do not ignore them. Tune into them. Tap in, lean in, understand them, and pursue them. If not you, then who? If this episode was helpful to you in any way, please like, share, comment, subscribe. It does wonders for our efforts, and it helps us to continue our mission of inspiring entrepreneurs and giving them the resources and the perspective we all need to take it to the next level. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paresa Noble, and we'll catch you next time.